So trust the science was probably the least scientific thing we've ever heard in our lives. That the whole thing about science is you don't trust it. You test it.
Being a thermostat
There it is.
as opposed to a thermometer, understanding and knowing that is a game changer.
I'll be honest, I'm still studying and learning, because if you really understand how medicine works, you quickly understand that the line between pharmacy knowledge and sorcery is incredibly thin. So basically, there's no completely solid matter at the deepest level. We're talking here at the deepest level. That's the crux of it.
And when I wrapped my mind around that, because it kind of goes against everything that I feel that we naturally come to the conclusion of.
Several uniquenesses of that experience, including telepathic communication, very much a form of frequency use. To have a being look at you and tell you something, their mouth never moves. It's not subtle
At all.
The words entered my mind.
The snake doesn't hear with its head lifted toward the sky. It hears by keeping its jaw pressed to the earth. So
we out here telling people, keep your ear to the ground.
it's an inversion. Because, keep your ear to the ground if you want to.
Yeah, you
or
hear something.
keep he says, your jawbone, the bone that opens and closes the portal for sound to be emitted. Come into contact with the lowest form. That's how you are able to hear if you were a snake.
People that use crystals in healing are not stupid. I was trying to understand what was happening to me. And if I'm being honest, the church didn't have much in the way of answers. Why we do this podcast.
Yeah.
What if I told you you were meant for something more? And what if at first sight your birthright was inked in blood? And what if dominion was written in big bold letters? And what if we shouldn't just occupy but overcome? And what if the observation of opposition was us? Antikemi, the podcast.
If you're going to survive cold and flu season without succumbing, you have to start prepping a ways ahead of time. We learned that in COVID. Vitamin D was a key player. So you had to build up your immune system for a while, right? And and you couldn't just start whatever, the day of exposure. That's the way that works. So if we are going to navigate the season of the greatest deception that has ever been perpetrated on humankind, the season that Jesus said, if it wasn't cut short, even the elect, if it were possible, would be deceived. The very elect.
Yes, sir.
There's something you have to do to prepare yourself, and you can, and you should, and it's immediately attainable. It's not a big secret. There is something you have to do to prepare your spiritual immune system to function correctly under that onslaught, so that you will be able to go through it without succumbing to the infection. That's what we're going to talk about tonight. What do I do to prepare myself so that I am immune to deception?
With that being said, you are tuned in to Antikemi, the podcast. Woo! I am one of your hosts. My name is Jonathan.
I'm the other half of your host, Schulz.
What an intro. Like, I love the way that you laid that out. To be able to build up a level of immunity, it takes a level of preparedness.
Yeah.
And I feel like we don't talk about that. We just think that we're going to put on the whole armor of God by just being his children without actively activating it or praying, spending time with the Father, doing what he says that we should do. We just think that, I've been part of the club now, and so I'm good.
Yeah.
And that's a dangerous way to live your life.
Solomon said, where the tree falls, there will it lie, which, like a lot of deep wisdom, at first glance just sounds like, thank you, Captain Obvious. Right?
Yeah.
It's actually an unbelievably profound statement. There are certain traumas that happen in life that once they take place, you wherever you were going into it is how you're going to have to go through it. And I remember the first time I heard, that obesity was one of the main risk factors for COVID. And
I remember that.
Yeah. And I this is not by way of excuse. It's not as simple as just eat less than you're putting out. I mean, in some ways it is. But in other ways, sometimes after a lifetime of being in a certain health condition, your body has all kinds of secondary and tertiary things going on, and progress is slow. And I was like in this phase where I was making progress, but we weren't there yet. And I realized, this is probably how I'm going through this thing. And
well, you blew my mind. Was it last week? And you were just, let me back up. I had been like on this change your life, new way of eating and exercising, and I was down a great path. Loving the way that I was starting to feel, putting, healthy things inside my body, and then my body just kind of hit a brick wall at a certain point.
Yeah.
And like I was dealing with double ear infections.
Yeah.
And I felt like trash, and everything inside me wanted to just be comforted, right? And so while I navigated some of those old habits at first really well, it kind of led me down a path of like some familiarity that I had with like eating, not the best things, the best times, or
you're
whatever.
Feeling terrible.
Right.
Yeah.
Not exercising the way that I know that I needed to, moving my body with a level of frequency that I had been establishing, right? But you said something that like blew my mind. And you just kind of like sprinkled it out there. You didn't say like any thus saith the Lord or nothing like that. You just like got a little food for thought. But you were like, what if your body is manifesting a level of like sickness or infection as rebellion to the new way that you are trying to lead your life?
Right.
Meaning that the healthy food and the exercise and proper sleep and all of those things that you're prioritizing, your body has gotten to a rhythm and a current of enjoying what you have been doing for the majority of your life.
Yep.
And now you're coming in here and you're making changes, and you didn't even ask permission to do the changes. And so body's like, okay, let's manifest a illness, because that typically puts you back into the old rhythm and the old patterns. And that really got me thinking of like, wow, the defense systems that we rely on so much can and often will be used against us if we're not careful,
100%. What you're talking about there probably doesn't sound like hard science, and there's a sense in which it might not be exactly hard science. I think that it's important for us to recognize that the value of modern Western medicine at its best is that it is predicated on hard science.
Right.
And I said at its best because I know it's not always that way.
No.
There are other factors, clearly. But the best thing about modern Western medicine is it's predicated on hard science. Like with most things in life, the thing that makes it so good at what it's good at is also what defines its limitations.
Come on.
And so, if you drop with a massive coronary heart failure, God forbid, you really, and I say this with zero disrespect to anybody, you're not, nobody's going to holler, is there an acupuncturist here? But that's not because that person can't help you. Maybe even arguably, possibly, more fundamentally closer to root issues than, an allopathic doctor can. But when it comes to intervention, man, it's pretty hard to beat Western medicine. Like it's
right.
good at what it does.
Right.
But
with that being said,
so one of the limitations of science is a very specific thing. One of the least scientific things we've heard in our lifetimes was this cultic mantra, trust the science.
Oh boy.
I mean, the
trigger warning.
The horrific irony of that statement was that it was a thought-ending paradigm.
Yeah.
That was deliberately designed to pull on the tribalistic instinct in people.
Conversation stopper.
We need everybody to stop trying to look at the data and just buy into the mantra, the line.
Yeah.
So trust the science was probably the least scientific thing we've ever heard in our lives. That the whole thing about science is you don't trust it. You test it.
Yes. That's good.
You use it.
Yeah.
As soon as you trust it, it's no longer science, it's dogma. And so like I say, science is a very specific thing. One thing about science is it is predicated on repeatable, observable experimentation. You have to be able to repeat an experiment under all different circumstances, throw all kinds of variables at it in a controlled environment, and demonstrate again and again that a particular thesis.
Thank you, Daddy.
Should we give any backstory for that?
Sorry, that's my phone.
I don't know if I can recover from that.
Oh, that's hilarious. Well.
All right. So if you go to plug that in again, I'm going to kill you.
I'm not. Oh, man.
That is classic.
Trust the science.
That has to be a short. So if you cannot repeat it and observe it and test the thesis, you're no longer doing science. Because a scientific theory, and it's so lazy when people say, well, theory, so here's my theory. No, in scientific context, the word theory carries a lot more weight than I held a cardboard box up to a flashlight and now I think the earth is flat. Like, that's not
oh man.
That's not what theory means. It's not somebody's opinion.
No.
Theory means so far this is the most consistent explanation for the data we have observed.
With the evidence.
That
we've
we
gathered.
Have. Yeah.
Yeah.
And what gives it value is that you're not supposed to trust it. You act off of it because it's doing a really good job of predicting outcomes. But you continue to test it.
Yes.
And when the theory breaks, you formulate a better one that doesn't break. And so so that's science. And that is what gives us such a great tool of intervention in Western medicine. But then what you have to realize is the scientific view is not the hard scientific view is not the only view that can tell you anything about life or health.
Come on.
There are other points of view that provide value. One great example is a slightly softer science, which is psychology. Psychology plays into why we get sick. We know that as a matter of hard science. We've been able to observe psychological principles playing into how we interact with disease and unwellness and healing and recovery and all that. But it's a little softer science because it's harder to repeat the same set of circumstances again and again in a controlled environment to test psychological theorems.
Right.
You're dealing with the human consciousness. So a lot of that is going to be a little softer in the sense that, Jung, Freud, all these other thinkers are putting out the analysis of what they have observed, and they're harmonizing it the best that they can. It's like right on the border of heading into philosophy.
Yeah. Yes.
But with a very practical, pragmatic application. When we treat this manifestation in somebody's life as though it had this causality, we get good results. So we have a feeling that we're probably right, that this particular psychological expression is tied to this trauma. And so it's a little softer, but it plays in and it's worth looking at. The same can be said of spirituality. The same can be said of those other aspects of whatever, understanding ourselves in the world.
Yeah.
And so from that point of view, what I said to you actually makes a fair amount of sense. And here's why. Because we know that the job of the subconscious is to enforce the expression of our core beliefs.
Absolutely. So it's almost as if this is an opportunity for you to really vibe check.
Right.
What you really believe about yourself. Because you could reach a point where you're like, I have drilled down to the root issue of me wanting to change.
Right.
And you're thinking that, I'm a brand new me.
Right.
But then when you are tested, it's almost like your body puts you through your paces of like, okay, let's see. And will you overcome this level of obstacle, right? You've overcome a level of temptation, right? You've been able to dodge the donut at the potluck.
Yeah.
But that's when your body was feeling great.
Yes.
But how about when you're feeling like trash? When you're hard pressed, when you're stressed, when your immune system is not as boosted as you would like.
Right.
Are you still making the good choices? And that's the you that you really have to listen to, because that's the real you.
Yes. Yes. The real you, this is why we keep telling people to go into the temple that you are, lay aside action and enter that outer court by stilling your body, then begin to set aside thought and enter that inner court by stilling your mind, and find yourself by the grace of God in the holy place where the I amness of him is united with the becomingness of us. And in that place, the I amness of him unites with the purest expression of us, and in that reuniting, we are transformed by the renewing of our minds in the stillness that is the absence of all thought and deed. In that sacred, holy place where the presence of the living God is all and in all, true transformation happens there because you come out of there with beliefs that are predicated on ultimate truth, with knowledge and understanding predicated on. You know what I mean?
Yes.
You've been in the presence of ultimate truth and been united with him. And
you're confronted with it too.
That's right. And you actually don't have to have engaged the intellectual process of decoding and decrypting, like a lot of counseling is digging through. You know, that's why a good counselor is very attuned, or a good psychologist is very attuned to hear what you're not saying and what you're saying. What you don't even think you know. You will verbalize ultimate truth about what you believe, but it's not what you said, it's what you didn't say, or how you said it, or the way. That's why we have something we call a Freudian slip, where you can say something that betrays something from deep within your subconscious. And so in the place where he is, transformation does not have to go through that digging process. You can just come out of his presence and you will be transformed. You will. It's not, you hope you are. You will. You will be transformed. Core beliefs, core understandings, core values will be different. And because of that, your subconscious will automatically begin to partner with his spirit to manifest more of the kingdom of heaven into this reality. But apart from that, it's a long, slow process of digging into who do I really believe that I am? Because if you really believe that you are an overweight, unhealthy, middle-aged man with aches and pains, and then you start to hit the gym hard and eat right and all of these things to become something different, but you don't update your subconscious, you don't read your subconscious in and make it aware that we are no longer that person, that is not who we are, and we are in the process of becoming who we actually are and expressing who we actually are. Your subconscious, I believe, will often work against you directly, against your conscious mind, because Paul said it very clearly in, Romans 7? I find then that another law worketh in my members, that when I would do good, I do evil. That's that other law.
Yeah.
That doesn't believe you're saved, that doesn't believe you've been transformed, that doesn't believe you're a new creature, that doesn't believe you no longer hate your neighbor, that doesn't believe that you're no longer filled with envy and strife. You have to update your inner man with the new knowledge, or else you're going to have, brand new software running on outdated hardware, or vice versa.
I have never heard it quite put like that before. Even the verbiage of updating your inner man with the new update.
I think the analogy there is firmware.
Yeah, the firmware update.
You can't interface with the app you're trying to download because you haven't updated the firmware.
So the software is only as good as the housing.
Yeah. The
Yeah.
app is what you think you want, but the firmware is what you believe you are.
Let that sizzle. That's that's good.
And that's really what we're talking about here, because really a way that we can say this is, what do I resonate with? What I was questioning to you that day is it possible that your inner man does not resonate with the vision of the new you that you're going for? And the only reason I asked you is because I'm in the middle of dealing with that.
That's so thought-provoking. And right now, I just want to stop for a second, because that's such a perfect way for us to like do a call to action, really. If you are struggling with something that you are trying to improve in your life, fill in the blank, whatever it is, and you've hit a brick wall of feeling like you've gone so far and you can't get over the hump, or whatever obstacle you keep on encountering, these are some questions you can ask yourself. Have I updated my inner man with who I say that I am now? This is so much more than just affirmations. This is why affirmations kind of stay on the shallow end of what you're telling yourself. Because you may hear that affirmation and it sounds good to your ears, but has it resonated truly with the frequency of your soul to the point where change is embedded, like your root part of you? Because out of that, that's what's going to grow. That's what's going to change. You know what I mean? And
Yes.
ask yourself, like, have you updated what needs to be activated and changed for the manifestation of the new you to actually come to pass? Like the new creature.
Yes. Yes. Have you ever heard the term hypochondria?
Of course. Of course.
My dad used to tell this joke and just, hold his sides with laughter. Hypochondriac came home, told his wife, "I'm going to die." She said, "Oh, what is it now?" He said, "The doctor says it's all in my head." Which, in case someone's not familiar, hypochondria is a genuine disorder you can have.
Yeah.
That makes you believe you are sick all the time and dying. They used to call it morbid melancholy, I think. Like, basically, you think you're dying all
They
the
stuck
time.
them on Valium.
Yeah. And the etymology of hypochondria, I just looked it up, as I like to do. Hypo, which is under. Chondria, cartilage. Under the cartilage, what do you believe? And it comes from the old. It comes from the old way of looking at things, where they believe disease came from and all that. But again, while not hard science, there was real wisdom. There was a reason that they talked about sickness and so on, disease, in the way that they did, because they got results, trying to help people. But, yeah, it's this unfounded belief that one is sick under the cartilage. In there, you just have this belief. And the fact that is even a thing is fairly profound. But I think what I find even sometimes more profound is that there are real documented cases where that belief led to someone's sickness and death. There's a famous example of a guy who was told he was dying of cancer, and he died, but he didn't have cancer.
Yeah. Yeah.
We have to be really careful. We don't appreciate the degree to which the physical reality we inhabit is the outflow of what our inner being, the belief system that our inner being is truly attuned to.
Well, I don't want to jump too far ahead of where I know we want to go, but let's just dive off here. You've seen the studies where I believe they did it with water particles, how they spoke
Yep.
just death to them, basically.
Yeah.
Or even played like this frequency sound.
Yep.
And the water particles, the way that they took shape, it was something that was just jagged and almost evil looking. Like they physically responded to the negativity
Yes.
that it was spoken to, as opposed to speaking life and positive. It took an entirely different shape. I find that to be so fascinating, that there's the power in not only what is being said,
Yeah.
but the shape of the sound.
Yes.
It makes a tremendous difference in the outcome. Like our words and the sound that we make, there is a frequency attached to it. And it's not just the actual words themselves, but it's the heart and intent behind it. Because you can say something that is positive with a negative, evil, malevolent intent behind it.
Yes.
And it's going to accomplish what you want it to accomplish. It's not just tone.
No.
It's not just volume. You can have somebody like a coach who is actively yelling at his player, maybe even cussing him out.
Yep.
But there's such a love behind
the heart of it.
Yeah, behind what they're saying and what they're doing.
I see the best in you. I see you're letting yourself down.
They're pulling something out of that player, and they're pushing them to their very best self.
That's why Solomon said better to be, struck by a friend than given a kind word of flattery from a did he say enemy?
Yeah.
It will yield better fruit because the intent is what actually comes through.
I mean, that's why we use that term, Judas kiss.
Yeah. Yes.
I mean, the act itself was sweet and kind and loving, but the heart behind it was betrayal.
Yeah.
And what it carried out to. And Jesus felt it, and the rest of the disciples felt it too. So it's not just what we say, it's how we say some things.
I mean, when Jesus said, I am he, they all fell back.
Literally fell back.
Because of the profundity of what was behind him saying that. Because that was Almighty God declaring himself robed in flesh. But I am he. I mean, that was something Jesus had said multiple times through his life. And honestly,
right.
Take it out of the King James, it's something we all say. Somebody calls the phone, Mr. Brewster, this is he. But that's not the same impact because of the intent. The intent that you brought up affirmations a minute ago. Mm-hmm. That's so crucial for us to understand. The fact that you cannot BS your subconscious into believing.
Nope.
It knows.
It does.
It's not hearing the words. That's not how your subconscious works. It's not. Your subconscious isn't an English speaker. It's picking up. You know what I mean?
Yes.
It's picking it up way deeper than that, way below that, under the cartilage. And so what you're actually instilling is whatever you're actually in agreement with when you're saying those mantras, which is one reason why it's so tragic when you can say to somebody, you know, hey, how are you? And they say, fine, and then they go take their own life. But it's because they didn't hear, how are you? They heard, don't bother me. They heard, let's keep this surface level.
My goodness.
It wasn't what you said that lacked, it was what you told them that lacked. It lacked compassion, it lacked presence. Because the hi, how are you ritual is actually more of a distancing. It keeps us all at arm's length now.
Mm-hmm.
Good to see you. How have you been? Would tell something very different only because it comes from a different space. It's not coming from ritual. Good to see you, man. How have you been? That's a totally different thing because of where it comes from.
And I think that our spirits resonate with that differently.
We pick up what's actually being put down, whether we know it or not.
I fully agree with that. But being in tune with what is being put out there is super key. And those of us who are a little bit more sensitive to that, I think sometimes I thank God that I'm not as hypersensitive to those things. I think it would kind of drive me crazy.
Yeah, it does.
You know, especially being in the people business.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But if, like my wife, she can feel things off of people.
Yes.
And just have like her nowhere knows. And I've learned to truly trust her when she said like, something's not right with so-and-so.
Yeah, gentlemen, ignore that at your peril.
At your peril, like listen to those things.
Because that feminine intuition thing, and I deliberately didn't call it female intuition because I don't think that's what it is. It's feminine intuition. The female of our species exhibits it much more naturally than we do, but it's
not
just a
reserved.
feminine aspect of human nature.
Right.
But that feminine intuition, that right side, is super crucial. It cannot run the whole show by itself, but it is not there to be ignored.
No.
And it is that you said knower. It's that part of your being that is attuned to the energy coming at you. And that's super critical because anybody can choose any words they want to. And if we're not attuned to picking up where those words are coming from, we will project whatever intent fits our working model of the world best. So we will project the intent onto those words that we need to believe to avoid disrupting our understanding of the world. So when your favorite politician, whom you are much more deeply and emotionally attached to than you think you are, because you are counting on them to stop the thing that is terrifying you. You don't think you care that much about who the president is, except that the thing that got you to the voting booth was actually that you're scared it's the end of the world. And you are counting on that person to be your knight in shining armor.
Sheesh.
And so they can abjectly lie in your face. And when presented with compelling and repeated evidence that they have lied to you, that I had a friend that used to say when we'd be in the middle of partying and being idiots, and he would turn to me and he would go, "Schulze, we are the people our mothers warned us about." But when all of the evidence is telling you this is a wolf, but you will refuse to engage that feminine intuition, that right-brained instinct that is telling you truth because you are so desperate to hold on to your projection of a reality in which they're about to save you from what terrifies you.
Right.
And so you will put yourself on their plate and hand them fork, knife, and napkin and invite them to eat you up, all in an effort to avoid confronting what that right brain has been screaming at you the whole time. How did we get there?
I mean, I've been wanting to kind of deep dive this topic of frequency on this podcast for a minute. I didn't know when we would jump into it. I know that you took our church. I mean, you barely scratched the surface from what I
Truly.
know that you really wanted to.
Because you have my notes.
Yeah. I always get frustrated because I'm just like, man, it's like pages of gold here.
And we're slogging through one paragraph for 3 weeks.
Right, you know. But I mean, that's just the nature of it. When you're a deep thinker and when you're putting things together and you're connecting them to each other and marrying the science and the scriptures in such a way, I mean, in the format of a Sunday service, it's hard to be able to like squeeze it all in. But this is why antikemi exists, for us to be able to have those longer conversations kind of unfettered by that time limit.
Well, yeah, and this is exactly what our Lord did, because he walked among us with the full knowledge of all of it.
Yeah.
And told us stories about shepherds and sheep and a woman who lost a penny. And that must have almost been torment for his soul. But in the absence of being able to get us all up to speed right away, he did a couple of things. One is everywhere he went, he was love and he did love. And the other is everyone he spoke to, he challenged their paradigm, however gently, however subtly, However, but he challenged their paradigm. Just try to wake up the knower a little bit. But then he pulled those aside that were hungry, and he broke the bread to them. And I think that's what, by the grace of God, at a much, much, much more rudimentary level, because we're not him,
Yeah.
that's what we're trying to do here.
I mean, we're made in his image, and we have
Yeah.
his spirit dwelling inside of us. And so we have everything that we need to start having these type of conversations. But this is kind of where, well, unless you have some place that you want to go. No? So this is my question. When the Lord was like dealing with you on the understanding and the topic of frequency, what was the urgency that you felt in that moment to kind of like discover the power behind what we can't see with our natural eyes, but is literally all around us, and why that's so important for us to be able to come into alignment? Like, the language that you gave our church has been revolutionary to how I pray. I think it's so important for us to be able to add language and verbiage,
Yeah.
because it does change how we interact with our own soul
Yeah.
and how we then interact with the Creator.
Yes.
To really come into agreement, come into alignment. Those words carry a level of power, I think. And I remember that we never got around to like playing this clip in service, but we talked about it, and we had found like this classic clip of a video of a metronome.
Yes.
You remember that?
Oh, yeah.
And the metronome is ticking back and forth at a certain speed, and other metronomes are around it, and they kind of add that metronome to a group of other metronomes that are already going, and the initial metronome is ticking at a different speed than the rest. But then shortly, that metronome comes into alignment with the other metronomes and starts to fall in line and starts to click and tick at the exact same speed and tempo and resonate with like whatever frequency that's happening. That was a very powerful, practical, real life example of how we can kind of come into alignment from what's happening around us, both good and bad.
Yes.
We look at that like, oh, we are super inspired by it. Like, oh, that's great. We come into alignment. But we have to also look at, like, that's exactly how you can be brought down to a negative frequency as well if you're not careful with the people that you're around. I've said it before. I'll say it one more time just before you jump in. I think it was the artist J. Cole. This other artist was like in the studio, and she was like complaining about something that happened, whatever. And so J. Cole is sitting there, and he's like writing lyrics or whatever. He's just inside the studio, kind of just chilling and vibing. And she recalls the time that she came into the room that he was in. It was just them two. And she started kind of complaining about something, and was just like real negative. And he didn't say anything. He just stood up, grabbed his stuff, and left the room without saying a word. She was like, excuse me?
Yeah.
But later on, he kind of like admitted, he was like, yeah, I just didn't want to be around that type of negativity in that moment. It was literally killing the creativity that I was trying to operate in at that moment. And he recognized whatever sound was being released, whatever frequency that was being released, he says, if I don't leave the proximity of that, one of us is going to draw the other. And I'm not going to give you a chance to draw me down, pull me down into your negative frequency. So I'm going to remove myself. And he said he did it silently without saying a word. Just got up and left.
Yes.
So like that story like really resonated with me, and how we can silently sometimes operate from a higher level without being so super preachy, without, throwing rocks at somebody else and telling them about themselves, just by being built different and moving differently, moving accordingly, and allow them to observe. She got the message.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. He I don't think that I could see how what he did could be read as rude, and maybe he did it in a rude way. I don't know, but I certainly don't think it has to be rude. Mm-hmm. This is no different than Jesus sending out the mourners.
Yeah.
Jesus wasn't being mean. He just knew what energy he didn't need in the room. And so I think there's a great deal of wisdom that's born from experience in a case like that. When someone decides not to surround themselves with influences that are going to either frustrate what they are there to produce, or are going to twist it, pervert it, realign it to a different frequency. I mean, when Jesus came into his hometown and realized that the perception of him there was, isn't this Joshua from the Shake Shack? You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Isn't this Jesus, the carpenter's son? Meaning, didn't this guy fix my cupboards? He just didn't do many miracles there. It wasn't because he was trapped in ego and it offended him. It was because the energy in the room wasn't right to do that.
No.
So I'll answer your question, and then if you're good with it, I think if we, because we're about to round one of the bends, I think that this podcast is developing a really nice rhythm.
I agree.
There's usually there's a little flow to it, and we're about to round one of those 60-minute bends. And so as we head into the second hour, maybe we can frame up the conversation to try to make sure we bring everybody along with us.
Yeah.
But before that, I'll answer your question. What was, what instilled the sense of urgency in me as the Lord dealt with me about this topic and this concept, which came at a time when our church was very much we were in a moment where it was imperative that we align ourselves to the right rhythm, to the right metronome, because we had competing metronomes. We had people tuned to competing rhythms, or competing frequency states, mindset states, spiritual states, and something was going to win. And then we were going to be tuned to that, whatever won.
Yeah.
So we were at a critical moment where we had to decide who we were going to be going forward. And one of those frequencies was bitterness leading to death and decay and chaos. And the other was forgiveness, release, redemption, and tending toward life. It really was very much a, see, I set before you this day, blessing and cursing, life and death, choose life.
Deuteronomy.
And so, I mean, on one level, that very fact is what instilled the urgency. But I'll just say, going back a little ways in my life, so we've beat the dead horse here. I have an odd story. I mean, I just have always been an outlier, for good and for bad, but it just is what it is.
Right.
And so, as someone who can clearly recall my first overtly paranormal experiences, if you want to say it that way, at least going back to 5 years old. You know, I had always been aware to one degree or another that I saw things and sensed things that not everybody around me did. And I didn't know entirely what to attribute that to. It's funny, the older I get, the more I see how many factors were pointed that way. There's a known correlation between neurodivergence and that kind of extrasensory kind of experience, like seeing stuff that others don't, and heightened intuition, energy, awareness of energies. And also, I have Rh negative blood, and apparently there is a statistical, like a known statistical tendency for more people in that category to have, whether it's alien encounters, poltergeists, angelic stuff, whatever, but more people in that category have those experiences. So there were just some apparently like almost biological factors that tended that way. And then all kinds of stuff that had to do with trauma and the environment. And so a big part of my story of coming to faith in Jesus has to do with having been locked in this very visceral, very extremely, and I'm going to use a weird word here, real experiences. Because I hear people talk about the spiritual world and then real life.
Yeah.
And
like they're so separated.
I can't tell you how backwards I think that is. But I know what they mean. What they mean is material.
Yeah.
That's what they mean.
Touch and
sensory.
Feel. Yeah, sensory.
But for me, those experiences they did materialize. And that's what I don't know if people understand. When I tell you that I have had these encounters, I'm telling you, no. My senses were involved, fully involved. Like, if I say I saw it, I saw it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've smelled it, touched it, interacted with it. As to what level of material density those things take on, different ones are different.
Yeah.
But that's really what people mean. They mean how much materiality was involved. So all of that was kind of in the background. But then I had this experience that I've related here before of listening to Joe Dispenza, Dr. Joe Dispenza, which I'm not rendering an opinion on him. I would very much put Joe Dispenza in the category of if God calls you to interact with what he's put out, eat the meat and spit out the bones.
Yeah.
If you're not called to it, maybe don't bother with it. I don't know. He may be a charlatan for all I know. I'm not saying he is. He may be for all I know. There are those who say he is. It makes no difference to me because there was meat on those bones for me.
Yeah.
And
Same.
you know what I mean? But I was listening to him describing an experiment he had been a part of, and they had people hooked up to EKGs, and they were monitoring the biofield around them. All of us have a little electromagnetic field that we put out. Believe it or not, some people can see that field, and they call it your aura. But they can see it, and they'll see it with color, and that's real. Like, yes, there are frauds and charlatans in that world, but there are in every world. That's real. People have an energy field, and
Hold on. People have an energy field. That's hard science.
yeah.
That's not
soft
pseudoscience. No. It's not woo-woo. It's not new age.
No.
We have an active energy field. So if you've never heard that before, I invite you to look it up.
That's not new age.
That's not new age.
That's just it is.
Yeah, go ahead.
And Western medicine will poo-poo it, and then the more Eastern, the more holistic will lean into it, and you just have to decide. But Western medicine will not say that it's not real. They will say it's real. They'll say it's weak, which it does tend to be in this modern world, at least weak. We're in a very carnal, embodied society where all of our energy has been sucked into our bodies. But that's kind of another discussion for another day. But they will also say that the strongest radiance from that comes from our heart. So that's interesting. And that's Western science for you right there. But they had people hooked up. They were monitoring this field, and they were doing deep meditation, which puts you in a particular brain wave state. It puts your brain at a particular frequency function, which, if you're not aware of that, just look it up. Your brain goes into different frequency ranges at different times and under different conditions, and that produces different functions, and you can't do other functions from, like when you're in deep delta and you're in REM sleep, you can't go do a high gamma function. You're not in that frequency. No. You're not going to do that. That's not the brainwave pattern you're in. So they were monitoring all this. They had people in deep meditation, and they were suggesting healing and health to them. These were people that had specific complaints, and they've had some pretty remarkable results. Again, this is softer science because so much of this is so hard to repeat and observe.
Right.
But they saw stuff.
Yeah.
One of the things they saw was people actually being healed, is the best way to say it, of really serious conditions in as little as 4 seconds. When in deep meditation, receiving those specific inputs being suggested to them of healing and wholeness. What we're talking about here is the same thing that should be happening to us on a daily basis if we have practiced the art of entering the stillness of his presence and letting his spirit whisper truth to us. We would come out healed. We would come out whole. We would come out transformed. When I heard that statement in as little as 4 seconds, something about it resonated. Something about it struck a nerve. And I said, internally, I'll never forget, I thought to myself, my pastor taught me how to pray in the Spirit basically all the time, because you don't have to use your conscious mind to pray in the Spirit. And so I have a practice of the majority of my life, I'm in an attitude of prayer. And I had been for some years at that time, and I thought to myself, what are the odds that the brainwave state that produces is significantly different from that produced by the kind of meditation he's talking about? And so I said to the Lord out loud right then, if there's anything to what he's talking about, and if the reason that I am, because this is what Dispenza was teaching about, if the reason that I am still manifesting crippling chronic pain in my life is tied in any way, shape, or form to the fact that it has become an identity thing for me, I believe at the core of my being that I am chronically disabled. I repent of that. I renounce it. I don't agree with it. And whatever you want to do in my spirit, I receive it. And that's what I'm in agreement with. All of that is statements about resonance. What do you resonate with? Which we'll get into what resonance is. But the moment I said it, the pain left my body. And we're talking about, I can count on one hand how many encounters I had with the pain leaving my body in a decade. And each of those other encounters had involved somebody praying the prayer of faith over me, and inevitably, anywhere from several hours to a few days later, the pain returned at full force. And that has not been the case from the moment that I am talking about. I can picture in my mind, I was standing in the master bedroom upstairs at 7411 Fire Oak Drive, Austin, Texas, and I was making the bed and listening to Joe Dispenza. I made that statement to the Lord. The pain left my body. For the next 18 hours, I took no pain medication, which was the first time in who knows how many years. And then after that, I've never gone back to anything close to the amounts of medication that I had been on over the course of the next year and a half. After that, I left all pharmaceutical medication and using some herbs and supplements less and less since that time. So the dependency even on those other herbal and supplemental things has diminished consistently, including all the way down to this week. I lowered the dosage of those things that I'm using again 2 days ago. I'm down to well under at this point. It has to be about a 90% reduction in what I'm using, and I'm more able-bodied.
No, I'm just saying. I remember when you had experienced this.
Yes.
And I think you were kind of hesitant at first to kind of like openly talk about it.
Yes.
But when we had some like offline discussions about it, as reserved as you were about kind of giving voice to the experience, I don't know if I told you at the time, but it truly resonated with me.
Yeah.
Like, I recognized this wasn't just wishful thinking.
Right.
Of you being like, yeah, this is great. No, something transformative had taken place in your life. And I think that you had gone so long with just pain management.
Yes.
It was just a part of who you were.
100%.
And anybody who knows you knows, like, you just have dealt with pain. Very similar to me with, like, some of the sinus issues that I've dealt with. It's just like,
it's just
part of life, right? And seeing other people navigate their day not dealing with the sinus issues that I've always dealt with was just like, that's great for them. That's just not my reality.
Right.
And you start to kind of believe about yourself, like, this is just what it is. But when you encountered that level of, like, healing and freedom, like, there was something tangible about, I guess, the aura. Like, you know what the word is? It was hope.
There you go.
That's the word.
That's so good.
That's
so good.
You emanated hope. And I'm sure that's what people who encountered Jesus, they felt that.
Yeah.
Of like, man. And anybody who has, like, been inside, like, healing crusades or whatnot, all it takes is just one.
Yeah, one person get out of that wheelchair.
And the level of activation that can fill a room of people. I mean, it's just the power of exposure, number one. That's another little trail we could go down.
Yeah, we just heard
later.
that preacher went down that road talking about the pool of Bethesda.
Oh, man, my gosh. That was powerful.
Yeah.
But yeah, like, I just want to just say, like, man, you emanated hope in that moment as you shared that. And I mean, I hope people who listen to this, they feel that.
I hope they do too. I hope that there's a mustard seed in them that goes, I think I believe that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm not special. Like, I am, but I'm not. I'm special in the same way you are. Like, I'm a child of the King. You can have it. It's not a matter of manipulating for what we want. All of us have crosses to bear. The Lord told Paul his grace was sufficient. But it's just a matter of being open that if you have better, I don't want to resonate with worse.
Come on.
That experience was the first fruits of this awakening that precipitated us starting this podcast. And I just had just begun to go through this dramatic spiritual awakening. I felt like I was in the first phase of it where, for one thing, I felt crazy. I was convinced everyone around me was going to bail, including my wife. I was convinced at that juncture that when they figure out the degree to which my perception of reality has shifted, they're going to bail. But there was no one ringing the bell. It wasn't like I had a choice to go back and go to sleep. And so this was the early days of that when this happened. The reason I was listening to that talk was because I was trying to understand what was happening to me. And if I'm being honest, the church didn't have much in the way of answers.
Still doesn't.
Again, why we do this podcast. Yeah. There's more now, but still not enough. And there was a lot less then, just a few years ago. And then very shortly after that was when I had a close encounter. I haven't gotten a ufologist or something to analyze it, so I don't know. It had to be somewhere between of the third and fourth kind, meaning I had direct, personal, extended contact with these interdimensional beings, and several uniquenesses of that experience, including telepathic communication, which is very much a form of frequency use. To have a being look at you and tell you something, but their mouth never moves, but it's not subtle
At all.
The words entered my mind in someone else's voice. So this being spoke to me, but no verbal words were said. There were a lot of things in that encounter that were strange. It went on for a few hours, and a lot of things, I mean, obviously there were a lot of things that were strange, but strange even for me, who's had a lot of experiences in my life. But the level of materiality in this one was very intense.
It was up there, yeah.
Yeah. But another aspect of it was just that there were certain things about the situation that I just knew, and I can't tell you how I knew them. So a lot of it was stuff I saw and heard, but some of it was just an immediate knowing that was, again, it wasn't subtle. It's not like I could think back and question what I knew. I knew what I knew. At least my perception was very clear, and I know what I understood. So that confluence of experiences where I realized and what had precipitated that encounter with those entities was asking the Lord, when that whole Miami thing happened that we talked about a couple episodes back, please show me, help me to be able to know and understand the nature of those beings. What are they? Who are they? And the reason I asked that was as a shepherd. That came from a shepherd's heart.
Yeah.
Because something about the way that story was breaking at that time made me realize this is a bridge we're going to cross. This is happening in the public eye, on display. This is a bridge we're going to cross. And the watchmen, the watch people of the Lord's flock have to be able to know what is what and who is who.
Yeah.
And so with an awareness that I'm going to have to tell the Lord's flock what they're dealing with, I asked for understanding. And his answer was to allow me to have this encounter. And that is, I don't remember hearing anyone use the term interdimensional before that. Very shortly afterward, it was said from the Pentagon. Very shortly after that, it was said from the Pentagon that these are interdimensional beings. But I had always heard the term extraterrestrial, but I came away from that experience with a vivid understanding. This is interdimensional, which means this is what the apostle was talking about when he said we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, powers, thrones, and dominions. These beings are the ones we read about in the ancient texts.
Right.
This is who they are. But they can, one of the things I learned that night is they can present however they want to present. And so or at least some of them can. So, that having been said, that's kind of the confluence of circumstances that led to me feeling an urgency to deliver as much of this understanding as I can to the Lord's flock about frequency and resonance and all of that, because I recognized, number one, that there was profound connection between those realities and understanding something about what miracles, signs, and wonders are, because I was living through one. There is healing to be found in understanding these things and knowing how to take these realities to the Lord and receive what he has for us in them, and knowing that our ability to discern the nature of awarenesses that are going to be pressed into our reality, meaning you used to be able to laugh aliens off because that's in the movies, and you know, the crazy guy that's drunk at the bar next to you is gonna ramble on and on about that. The trucker that drives across country and listens to Art Bell, but you can't write them off that way anymore, because your government is actively telling you that they're here. We're involved with them. We've been involved with them.
For the record.
For the record. And so recognizing that people's ability to discern the nature of those kind of realities was going to be predicated on how their awareness was tuned, which is an issue of frequency and resonance. I knew that this was a now message and something that we had to confront.
And it has consistently been something that I have recognized as being something that is urgent for me to start to be a lot more careful with how I allow myself to, thank you, my friend, interact with certain things and recognize that those things have a profound impact on me and my family. And those dominoes that fall have implications that can be generational.
Right.
Like, my children will be affected. My children's children have the chance to be affected by how I interact with certain things. And I've said it before, and I'll say it again. Being a thermostat,
there it is,
as opposed to a thermometer, understanding and knowing that is a game changer.
Yes.
And it's such a blessing and a curse, because I recognize that it's not just, man, we flatten it out to just like mood or vibes, but it's frequency.
Well, even vibes.
Right.
Is just short for vibrations.
Correct. Exactly. And we feel something even before we can see something. And interpreting what we feel is so important. And I think this is why this podcast really exists, because these are the guardrails for people who are understanding and knowing that there is something out there,
right,
that they're having to navigate through, and they don't necessarily have the language for. But they want to explore it, but they want to explore it in a safe place. This is the guardrails for you to be able to kind of navigate through that and understand and know that, yes, what you're feeling is real. How you interact and respond
Yes.
to that absolutely matters. And my mind's just kind of racing, just all the biblical applications to that. I mean, from the very first pages of Scripture, even how the world came into existence. There was a sound that was released.
Yep.
And that sound that was released, there had to have a response.
Yes.
Like, material creation happened and was ordered out of nothing. And in case you don't know, that's what makes him God.
Right.
We don't have that ability to materialize something out of nothingness
Right.
the way that he does. And I mean, a lot of like, what you probably know more about this than I do. Like the rabbis feel like the Most High sang
Right.
creation into existence. There was a sound that was emitted and things materialized based upon that sound.
I mean, one of the most beautiful images in Christian literature to me is in the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe series, not the Chronicles of Narnia series. I don't know if it was in that book or one of the other books, where the children have crossed over into Narnia, and I think it's after the battle with the White Witch and all that. But basically, the lion Aslan is going to populate this world with beautiful and wonderful things, and that's what he does. He begins pacing back and forth on the top of the hill and singing. Mm-hmm. And as he sings, trees and birds and flowers and elephants and zebras, and they all manifest. Each different note that he sings produces something new. Lewis is pointing at that same deep reality, that there is a song of the Creator that resonates through the universe, and every note produces some aspect of his creation. At the very least, and rabbis are comfortable with this, but so should, I believe, believers be. We don't buy into a lot that comes from that world, but there's truth tied up in all deception. But the very least, it's a profound metaphor. Maybe it wasn't a literal song, maybe it is. But regardless, the Creator singing and manifesting creation within those rhythms, those frequencies, is a profound metaphor for the reality that we live in. At the very least.
Yeah.
I mean, I hated math as a kid. And when I got older and realized that, first of all, the whole universe is math. But second of all, that music is math.
Yeah. It's all math.
wish somebody had taught it to me that way.
Well, for me, when I was first introduced to music, it was kind of, I dove into it just from the fun way of creating, but then getting into like theory, I was ready to hit the snooze button.
Right.
I was bored with it.
Right.
But I really wish I would have paid much more attention to the theory aspect of it, because musical theory is where genius happens.
And no one, I was the same way. Theory bored me. I can play by ear. I picked
Yeah,
up a trumpet and
that was
played
me.
it the first time I ever touched it. I watched my mom play guitar and I played guitar. But it hampered my ability to develop the craft that I never connected to the theory. But as I got older and I started realizing the theory is math and the math is theory and it all produced. And then I started seeing the math and the geometry and all of the created order, and it's this grotesque compartmentalization of knowledge that has killed it. Basically, we have analyzed the tree by cutting it into toothpicks. So by the time we're done learning about it, there is no tree. And who wants to study a toothpick? But if you put the tree back together and understand it as it exists, oh my God, it's so beautiful. So this concept that we're discussing, reality as resonance, basically. I mean, if you've watched our episodes, you already know this is our thesis. But if you are new here, I mean, we really do believe that the vast majority of human beings are operating mindlessly or unawarely from inside a shared overlay that filters what we would call prime reality, or has been called prime reality, or the Bible calls it truth.
Right.
The Matrix is a good metaphor for it. It is a prism that bends the light of all that we see and superimposes an experiential reality on our lives, so that our experience of the world aligns with a version of reality that we have been subjected to by eons of programming that our race, the human race, has undergone, that have framed our world for us in a particular way, and especially in the last couple of centuries, and even more so in the last 5 decades, has reached a fever pitch of global unification behind this way of interfacing with the world that is predicated on a form of false duality, where everything comes to us in sets of ones and zeros, yeses and nos.
Yes.
These choices, they give us the illusion of choice without there being any opportunity for a decision outside of that program. It gets very granular. You're white or black, you're Republican or Democrat, you're old or young, you're good or bad. Everything is flattened down into this very specific prism, and in a very real way, John St. Julian calls it the knowledge of good and evil operating system. In a very real way, it presents to us a version of reality that can only live inside this pre-selected environment that we have been injected into, where options are many, but choices are few and decisions are almost non-existent. Outcomes are predetermined. And if you're struggling to grasp what I'm saying, think about any time in your life that you've gone against the grain at all, or someone you know who's been a little unconventional. An example is maybe you decided to backpack across the country or Europe in the phase of your life where someone thought you should be getting a college degree and getting an entry-level job at a corporation and starting to save to buy a house, or maybe you started a business when people in your lives thought you should stay at the safe job. Anytime you broke the mold at all, think of the level of pushback that came at you. Why are you stepping out of line? Get back in your pre-scripted lane.
Yeah.
If you decide to value something differently than other people do, maybe you don't care what neighborhood you live in, or God forbid, what school district your kids are in. Or maybe you just care more about quality time with your family than you do bringing home extra thick bacon. God forbid your values don't align. Maybe you don't think everyone should have to move out of their home the moment they turn 18 and go make their way. Maybe you've noticed that the kids of billionaires tend not to do that.
Right. Right.
The kids of East Asians tend not to do that. They tend to stay in familial homes while they get established in their lives. Maybe you don't think dating is the way to find your spouse, whatever it is, but think about the level of pushback that comes against a person when they push against their culture. And what's funny is some of those decisions, you make them in America, you'll be, or white America or whatever, you'll be marginalized to the nth degree, and there's a huge level of stigma and othering that comes with it. But if you happen to be of some other, like you're from India, well, then it's totally acceptable, because in this matrix, your people do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
We live in a very prescripted world. And I don't know. I don't like it. I don't necessarily agree with a lot that he said, and I think he was a huge component of the programming, but I always go back to Rush Limbaugh when the 2008 downturn happened, re-signing his contract with whatever network he was on for $50 million as everybody emptied their 401ks and a reporter shoving a microphone in his face and saying, Mr. Limbaugh, do you feel guilty? Do you think it's out of touch that when everybody's struggling this hard, you're signing a $50 million entertainment contract? And he said, yeah, I know what you mean. I took a look at the recession. I saw what was going on. I didn't like it, and I decided not to participate.
Man.
But there it is. I get that there was a level of privilege and all that in what he was saying, but
it's a mindset.
There's something there.
Yes, sir.
The one thing you're not allowed to do, you can always choose yes or no. You can always choose right or left. The one thing you're not allowed to do is to decline. You have to keep the program running. It breaks the code.
Yeah.
If you won't pick. I don't like it.
Yeah.
I don't resonate with it. We believe that distortion that people are living in truly is an illusion. It's what the Bible calls heaven and earth that are passing away. Mm-hmm. It's reality under the sun. But as believers, we've been made to sit with him in heavenly places. We're supposed to have access to a higher reality. And there's a real bridge to science in what we're talking about, because more and more, from Einstein on at least, physics has used and used in increasing measure the language of fields, vibrations, and resonance to describe reality, instead of the old way of thinking about it, which was like reality in this material world was made up of like solid. I've heard so many science communicators use this metaphor of billiard balls, like everything was a bunch of tiny little billiard balls that are all self-contained, like smashed together real hard to make this chair or to make your body. But increasingly, that's not really how physicists describe our world. And this is not a lesson in physics, and we're not saying that everything we say tonight is coming from a hard science point of view. We're talking about a powerful metaphor that exists inside the physical world that teaches us something very fundamental about the nature of reality, where more and more the talk of what reality is has to do with frequency, which I thought this was a great description of it. It's just how often something repeats per second. That's frequency.
Yeah.
Just how often does it do that motion per second? That's why when you shorten the guitar string by pushing on the fret, that's what you're changing. You strike the string the next time, it's a shorter string. It repeats more times per second.
Yes.
And so the pitch changes because the frequency changes. And resonance, which is a word we've already used a lot, is when one system picks up and amplifies a vibration that matches its own natural rhythm. So resonance is when that frequency hits something that has a sympathetic frequency within it. And so something about these vibrations begins to trigger these because they're aligned.
Yes.
And so resonance, when you go on YouTube and look at someone can sing a note perfectly and shatter a glass, that's another one of the videos we had lined up in that sermon series, where they can sing the perfect note and shatter a glass. Why? Because they find a frequency that has a sympathetic frequency inside the frequency that is creating the glass. That's close to proof that the glass itself is not just a bunch of static billiard ball molecules stuck together, because what is it inside the glass that picks up that frequency and begins to resonate with it and actually shatters that reality?
It overcomes it.
Right.
Because a lot of times we look at physical objects just because they're tangible and what we can interact with in our sensory realm.
Yes.
And we ignore the true makeup of it.
Right.
And so when you have a frequency, because everything is frequency.
Right.
In case y'all haven't picked that up.
Yeah.
Everything is frequency. So when you have a frequency that emits a sound, for lack of better words, and it resonates with whatever frequency in that material object,
Yes.
if it overcomes it, there's going to be a reaction.
Yeah, if I understand it right, basically that sympathetic resonance inside the object amplifies that frequency that was already there in that object to the extent that it becomes more powerful than the frequencies that were pushing against it before to hold it in place. You know what I mean?
Yes, sir.
So you've amplified, by sympathetic resonance, you've amplified one of the pre-existing frequencies inside that object to the extent that it overwhelmed the others. And in order for that to happen, there has to be something for that frequency to move through. That's what we call a field.
Yes.
A field is the invisible medium filling space that can carry those energetic vibrations. So if I were talking to you right now, let's see if I can do this on the mic. I don't know if I can, but if I'm talking to you and then all of a sudden I'm muffled and you might say, hey, I don't know what happened to Schulz's audio on the podcast, but it sounded like he was underwater. Well, that's because the field changed. So the field right now that the sonic frequencies are moving through is the air, but if the field changes,
There's an obstacle.
right?
Yeah.
Then it has to move through a different medium, which is going to impact the way that we receive it. So there's the electromagnetic field. One way you can think of a field is a giant guitar string that stretches everywhere. So it's something for the vibrations to travel through.
Just before you continue on, something you just said. Matthew, just real quick, Matthew 13. I don't know if you said this on purpose. Knowing you probably did. Matthew 13, we'll start at verse 44. We could just stay at verse 44. You know where I'm going?
Okay.
I hope y'all brought
my
y'all
God,
Bibles.
That's good. Go for it. That's so good.
The kingdom of heaven is like a treasure hidden in the field.
That's so good.
which a man found and hid again, and from joy over it, he goes and sells everything that he has and buys that field.
That's so good.
He
That's so good.
just wanted to just throw that out there.
You may have to connect the dots for somebody because that's profound.
I mean, you just said, like, in order for the frequency to continue to travel to its destination or around to complete whatever its mission is, you need a medium, a highway, something that's going to connect it, whatever. And we call that a field. And I find it very interesting that Jesus, as he's telling this parable, and you could read all of Matthew 13, he uses several different analogies for comparing the kingdom of heaven, right? But he says the kingdom of heaven is like a treasure hidden in a field.
So we're going to wind up coming back to that at the closing end of this because you are alluding to one of the more profound observations about understanding reality from this perspective as a believer. Because right now we're talking mostly about what moves through the field, the frequency, the pitch, and the resonance that picks it up. But what is the field? and you just pointed at it.
Yeah.
It's so profound to think not every frequency can move through every field. So when you find treasure, Jesus is suggesting you should buy the field.
Man, that's so good. Oh, my goodness.
This leads directly and naturally to a discussion of quantum field theory, which, y'all, we're lay people. We're not claiming to. This is not a physics lecture.
No.
However, it's also not kind of a woo-woo. You know, we're not. We're not trying to hard sell you on some new age, you know, whatever. What we're saying, don't hear what we're not saying.
Yeah.
But what we are saying is our reality, our physical reality, it turns out, is not best described in terms of static physicality.
No.
It's actually much better described in terms of very rapid, unimaginably tiny movements that are happening of particles and atoms within a field that are drawn together and clumped together in specific ways under the exertion of different forces that are causing materiality to manifest. And while material things seem to be more real than those subatomic realities that we're describing, that is an optical illusion. That is a sensory illusion. Because the reason that this expression of those vibrations feels more real than the more theoretical description of it is only because of our ability to interact with it sensorily. But if you want to understand just how much more profoundly real that more theoretical side of it is than it would appear, just look at nuclear energy and what happens when someone takes this knowledge and applies it at that atomic and subatomic level. What actually happens? And you realize that is actually interfacing with reality at a very fundamental level. And then we're drawing from that wisdom in the form of a profound metaphor that teaches us how to interact with reality. So quantum field theory says the true stuff of the universe is fields that fill all space, and what we call particles are little localized ripples. Or the other term that I've heard is resonant excitations.
I like that word.
Yeah, in those fields. So a way to envision it is a wave in the ocean is a localized ripple inside of the field that is the ocean. But you can take that all the way down to the drop of water, and even more granular than that. Each tiny component you look at is just a more localized ripple in the field. So it's still a wave form. It's still a resonant excitation. It still is what it is, whether it's a wave, a drop, the particles, the subatomic stuff within the drop. All of it is just a hyper-localized, increasingly hyper-localized excitation of the same pattern of ripples moving through that field that is creating the thing. Is that clear as mud?
I think it's enough for a launching point.
This is a popular description, they say. When I researched it, this was offered as a common description. I think Wired magazine gave it. Particles are localized, resonant excitations of fields vibrating like springs in an infinite mattress. So the mattress would be the field.
Yeah.
So basically, there's no completely solid matter at the deepest level. We're talking here at the deepest level.
I think say that again, because I think that's the crux of the matter.
That's the crux of it.
And when I wrapped my mind around that little ditty, it changed a lot for me.
Right.
And I'm still trying to kind of wrap my mind around it because it kind of goes against everything that I feel that we naturally come to the conclusion of.
I was reading Brendan's, kids are homeschooled, so we were doing his science, and they were describing the different views, or maybe this might have been one of the older kids, Gemma or Callie's, because this is maybe a little deep for the book Brendan's in, but one of them, it was talking about the different atomic theories that have been put forth, because you can't really look inside an atom. Once you get to the subatomic level, we have to look at how the atoms behave.
Yeah.
And then reverse engineer what that must mean about the way the ions and all that are interacting. So the original models there were a few different ones, but a really popular one was to envision an atom like a solar system where
Yeah.
you had the nucleus and then these neatly, protons and neutrons and all that neatly orbiting the nucleus at very close range. But it turned out not to be the case. In reality, there's a lot more happening inside of an atom than that. Stuff is bouncing all over the place. We're talking inside of an atom. And the vast majority of what exists inside of an atom is space, the field. The field is by far the majority of what is inside an atom. Actually, the distance between the nucleus and the stuff rotating around the nucleus and bouncing around it is the space between those things is so much further than we originally thought. Like, I think the example that I remember, and I don't really remember, but it was something like, if the nucleus is an orange, then, there's a football field. It's stuff like that.
Yeah.
But the point, and different atoms are different. But the point is, that actually means that when you get down to that level, most of what exists is the field. The medium that the stuff is moving through, rather than the stuff, is most of what everything is. Most of this microphone is the space between the components of the atoms and the space between the atoms. It's just happening at such a minuscule level that we experience it as being very solid.
Yeah.
But it's not. It's not. And so there's no completely solid matter at the deepest level. There's just structured patterns of energy in fields. That's what there is.
It gives greater weight for me when Solomon, I think, said in Ecclesiastes, life is but a vapor.
Come on. Oh, my God. That's so good.
And we look at it as like, this is poetic. Oh, that's beautiful, Solomon. That man tapped into quantum mechanics.
That's scientific.
It's scientific. Life is but a vapor.
Oh, my Lord.
It's not as material as you think it is.
Oh, my God.
Isn't that crazy?
That's so good.
Yeah.
There's an old legend that says that Solomon's awakening started when looking at a walnut. That he realized that it encoded the mysteries of the universe. I don't know if that's true, but you could see it.
Yeah.
But life is but a vapor. That's so good, bro. So basically, the universe looks less like a pile of bricks and more like a cosmic symphony of standing waves and resonances.
That's crazy. Yeah.
So, this always makes me think of string theory. Mm-hmm. And, theories of everything are almost by nature either unprovable or close to unprovable. So they're always pretty much on the soft science side of things. And people get Nobel Prizes just for thinking of them, because a theory of everything has to, using logical defenses, has to be able to threaten to explain everything.
Yeah.
But again, in order to determine that it has explained everything, you would almost have to, in a laboratory environment, test every aspect of it repeatedly and prove. So it's almost, it is potentially impossible to prove a theory of everything, right? I believe. But possibly sometimes someone will. But a big one that really stands up to more scrutiny than most is this idea of string theory, which is unbelievably complex and way above my pay grade, except at the most lay level. So at the most lay level, this is the best explanation I can give for it. String theory proposes that the fundamental entities are not point particles. So the entities that are at the foundation of everything are not point particles, but unimaginably tiny one-dimensional strings. So string theory potentially views reality as just a giant conglomeration of tiny vibrating strings, meaning something that can carry and express a waveform.
Yes.
And
yes,
what you have to understand is when the greatest minds in the world examine reality through that prism of that idea, they tend to come to the conclusion that it's possible that that explains everything, which is pretty stinking remarkable. We're not saying that is the case.
That's amazing.
But we're saying it must have something to do with what the case is, because it threatens to explain everything.
Right.
So the strings can vibrate at different frequencies, and their vibrations give rise to the properties of particles and mass and charge and even the force types. And so putting all that in lay language looks like this: one string, many notes. One string, many notes. Just like one guitar string can play many notes depending on how it vibrates, one kind of fundamental string could appear as different particles depending on the vibrational pattern. So we're not saying that theory's proven. We're saying notice how some of our best attempts at a theory of everything naturally speak the language of vibration, frequency, fields, and space.
Yeah. That's cool.
That is what brings us to your metronome, which is a more modern expression of a very, very famous experiment that I also had talked to the church about. This is one of the few things that I think we actually got to, was talking about Christian Huygens' clock demonstration, which he was a Dutch scientist, and in 1655 or 1665, I think, Huygens noticed that two pendulum clocks. So y'all know what a pendulum clock is. I hope you do. If you don't, Google it. And I'm sorry that your grandma didn't have one, but so Huygens noticed that two pendulum clocks hanging from the same wooden beam, and that right there,
come on now,
two pendulum clocks hanging from the same wooden beam began to swing in perfect opposition. They call it antiphase to each other after some time, even if he started them randomly. So he tried starting them, the same time. He tried starting them the same direction. He tried starting them randomly. Didn't matter. The way it would always end up is like that. The pendulum is, this one's swinging out to the far left while that one swings to the far right. This one swings to the far right while that one swings to the far left. And in the century since that time, there have been a lot of different forms of modern recreations, and some of them they've placed two pendulums, others they've placed two metronomes, which you referenced earlier, on a movable platform. And after less than 30 seconds in all these experiments, after less than 30 seconds, they end up swinging together, either in phase or antiphase, which I'm not sure, but I think that part of what determines whether they come together in phase or antiphase has to do with the nature of the thing that connects them.
Wow.
And so some of the more detailed studies showed that the clocks or the metronomes or whatever they were using exchanged tiny forces through their shared support. And over time, they naturally settled into synchronized motion, or we might say a stable, resonant pattern. A stable, resonant pattern. So you start each clock doing its own thing. They listen to each other through the beam and the tiny nudges going back and forth. And over time, chaos surrenders to unity. One rhythm shared between them. And that's resonance plus coupling. So resonance is when a frequency being emitted by one thing is picked up by another thing that has that frequency embedded in it, right? But when you couple them, when there is connection, frequencies tend to align into coherent patterns.
I mean, it's almost as if what Jesus said. If two
I
or
wish somebody
three
would touch
come on.
and agree.
Yes,
He said it so precisely.
he did.
It's a weird thing to say if you've never heard it before.
Right.
Touch and agree. I mean, come on. Somebody put in the comments recently that they're struggling to learn how to study their Bible.
Right.
And I actually want to, at some point, I want to do something about that. Like that pulled on me.
It did me too. Is like, let's continue to like dive down the road of like proper hermeneutic.
Yeah. I want to help with that because I get that. And the Bible's one of those things that until it connects, it's hard to connect to.
Yes.
And really,
But when it does.
when it does, what we have to do is help that person get connected to the right medium so that the resonance can begin to pick up. Because what's happening there is that the frequencies that are coming from the word are kind of bouncing off of them. We need to get them grounded in a way that connects them to it so that the rhythm of their heart begins to align.
Yes.
And we've all been there. There's no shame in being there. But some of the things are very practical that have helped me, and I'm sure you, through the years. And so part of me wants to, like, I don't know, at some point, maybe do a segment or a little special mini episode or shoot a side video or something. I think that's a good idea. Yeah. I'm struggling to connect to personal study of the word. How do I get there?
Yeah.
There's good, we heard you. But this right here is, to me, a big encouragement that I want to put out. Stay connected to the word. If you're struggling to read it systematically, if you're struggling, stay connected to it, because you'd be surprised how powerful an influence it is to have a connection to a wave pattern that keeps coming at you. You may find that very naturally, if you just refuse to give up, if you refuse to disconnect, your pendulum will begin to realign and your heartstrings will begin to vibrate at the frequency. You know what I mean?
I do.
I'm going to look up. Do you have something to say? I'm looking up a lyric here.
I mean, the way that my mind works is the moment you said that them staying connected to the beam,
Yes.
my mind immediately goes to of course, the cross. And even before
Come
that,
on, man.
staying connected to the tree of life. Which in a weird way is like, was that cross cut from that wood? Because on his death, the very tool that he used to experience the most excruciating death that we could even dream up, he provided life for all of us. And we're able to come into alignment and agreement and resonate with life, choosing life inside that moment. And I can even think and imagine if you study crucifixion, they normally didn't nail people to crosses.
That's right.
It was normally they can strap their arms or their limbs to the beams. But when it came to the Christ, they found it necessary to stretch him across that beam and connect him to that beam in a way that most people never experienced. And can you imagine the sound of that hammer hitting the nail? What type of sound that emitted? That piercing sound of metal hitting metal. And those nails piercing the skin, driving through muscle and sinew to make the connection with the wood.
Which sinew in the Bible is called strings.
Yes, it is. In fact,
That's what strings come
that's
from.
exactly what
Yeah. Like my brother still plays gut strings on his violin.
I was getting ready to say. Like, you from a lamb, right?
Yeah.
This is why studying the Bible is so important. When you start to understand that what David used
Yeah.
in his harp
Yes.
to drive away the evil spirit from King Saul.
I was going to go there. Yes.
I don't want to steal.
No.
the punchline.
No. You're saying it. Why did that work?
The shepherd, who already has a core belief of protection
Yes.
over the sheep, used the part
Yeah.
of the sheep, the gut
Yeah.
of the sheep. And we understand the power of the gut
Yes.
from out of our innermost being, what's inside. I mean, you can connect it so many different ways, right? But take the gut strings, and that sinew is tied off and stretched in a way that it can create a sound. And when it is played a certain way, skillfully, that sound has the power to make demons flee. They cannot even be in the proximity where they were comfortable and where they were housed at. In fact, understanding that the Most High sent the tormenting spirit. But that sound had the power to even override the assignment of the tormenting spirit in that moment. You know what I'm saying? So it's just
yeah.
That's how you study the Bible.
Yeah, and you don't have to be us or anybody
No.
you with a platform that you know. You don't have to.
No.
You just have to The number one thing that I always say to people that are looking for that connection, before you open your Bible, every time,
Come on.
say, Father, I want to meet with you. I want to fellowship with you. I want to hear from you. Please give me eyes to see, ears to hear, and a heart to understand. Breathe on me and make your word come alive to me.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. Because these connections, there's so many of them, we'll never run out.
No.
When Jacob wrestled with the angel all night and his nature was changed, the angel touched his thigh and the tendon shrunk. And Genesis 32:32 says from that time on, the Hebrews don't eat the tendon of the shank that shrunk, because it's sacred, because it changed his nature. It changed how he walked through this world.
It literally changed his walk.
When the cord shrunk. Jacob, very literally, the frequency of his existence was changed. I was looking for the lyrics to one of the most beautiful Christian songs of all time, Dallas Home. I don't know if you have enough background in white church to be aware of Dallas Home, but the 70s and 80s, he's the one that did He's alive, he's alive, he's alive and I'm forgiven, heaven's gates are open wide. You
No, I missed that side of gospel.
yeah, you missed that whole world. But he had this one song that I couldn't even find the full lyrics for online, which is crazy. But I found a couple of them and I remember some of them. You touched upon the strings of my heart. You played upon the keys of my soul. You blew the notes of truth in my mind. You wrote the song of love in my life. And now I am part of a symphony, a beautiful heavenly harmony. Your name has become my only melody to play throughout all of eternity.
Oh, my God.
This is what we're talking about here. The master composer. Even that, we're talking about the nature of what reality is composed of. And we're using the language of composition, which is the language.
Come on, brother.
You know what I mean? Of
Yeah.
ordered, structured frequency and resonance. So if two mindless clocks can find a shared rhythm through a wooden beam just because of the shared impulses, the waveforms that are coming at them, what happens when countless human hearts and minds are coupled together through the mediums of culture, media, which is just the plural of medium in a Latin form, if I've got it right, and spiritual influences and the field that we have bought. This is, y'all, this is where it's at. You live in the field you've bought.
Somebody needs to write that down. It's going to help you. You live in the field you have bought.
That's why Jesus said, sell all you have. The kingdom of heaven is like a man who found treasure buried in a field and went away and sold all he had and came and bought the field. You have to buy into the field, and you can only, in this reality, you do have some decisions you can make, but not many. And one of the realities we're dealing with down here is you can only buy into one field at a time. So whatever gets your buy-in is the field you live in. And you are going to find in your life whatever is hidden in that field. So if you find the right field, sell up and buy in. And this is how somebody could honestly say, I looked at that reality. I saw what was going on in it. I didn't like it. And I decided not to participate. Yeah, you got something.
I do. Based upon our conversation today, it got me thinking about what the correlation would be with that particular subject. And just even going back to the garden, which is a lot of times where our conversations kind of end up. But
Yeah, of course. We live in this field.
it's paradise.
Right. Paul called the garden God's field.
Right.
He said in Colossians 3.
Yes, he did.
Which field you are.
Right. That's where we want to end up. And I asked a question. I wanted to understand what is the frequency that serpents hear at? I was really curious.
Okay,
right?
somebody.
Because they're...
See, you are just the right kind of weird for me.
I think this is why we vibrate, right?
Yeah.
And it was real interesting in what I kind of researched and found. You know, snakes, they have no visible means for detecting any airborne sound.
Say that again.
Snakes have no visible means for detecting airborne sound.
You're right.
They've lost the...
When's the last time you had a snake ear on your wall?
Right. They've lost the ability to hear like how we hear.
This is crazy.
And the external ear entirely, you know? What they possess instead is this inner ear that's linked to the jaw by a single middle ear bone, right? Check this out. Vibrations, they are channeled through bones in the jawbone, which typically rest on the ground.
I quit.
And that goes all the way through
on your belly
the
all
cochlea.
Your days. You shall go on your belly all your days and lick the dust of the earth.
Come on.
They can only hear from the dust. My God.
They can only hear from the dust.
Oh, my God.
They can only hear from the lowest place.
Yeah, just for those who haven't been on other episodes, the dust of the earth is how the Bible references the lowest level of conscious awareness. Oh, my God.
The snake doesn't hear with its head lifted toward the sky. It hears by keeping its jaw pressed to the earth.
Oh, my.
So
And we out here telling people, keep your ear to the ground.
I believe it's what you called an inversion.
Oh, my God.
It's an inversion. Because, keep your ear to the ground if you want to.
Yeah, you
or
hear something.
Keep he says, your jawbone. Keep your mouth. The bone that opens and closes the portal for sound to be emitted.
Oh, my God.
When you come into contact with the lowest form, that's how you are able to hear if you were a snake. Right? It says that snakes, they have a hearing range of roughly like 80 to 600 hertz. But their sensitivity is greatest in the low frequencies. Right? The nerve pulses
right now
are strongest at frequencies between 80 and 160 hertz. So to give you kind of a frame of reference, that's the range of the lowest notes of a cello.
You know why? Because of the medium that the sound is coming to them through is going to absorb
Everything.
Well, it's like what would you call that? A high pass filter.
Yes. Yes.
So the field that the sonic vibrations are moving through has a level of density to it
Yes.
that it's like a high pass filter. Most of the higher frequency stuff is going to get absorbed in the field. What's going to get through is going to be that low stuff that you're talking, so they can only hear low vibrationals. Oh my.
They only resonate with that.
My God. Because their inner ear bone only,
It's only attached to that, right? But this is not even the best part.
This. What?
Hey, check this out.
What?
This is what had me wanting to throw my shoe across the room.
Oh my God.
Many snakes we know, they will hiss, they will rattle, they will growl to warn the predator, right?
I don't like it. I've run across it.
But these sounds that they emit, they're mostly above 2,500 hertz. So that means snakes themselves cannot hear their own warnings. The serpent speaks a language it's not built to receive. Yo.
What?
Isn't that crazy?
Was all that in an article, or is that like the summer? Like, did you put that together?
It's multiple articles.
Oh my Lord!
I mean, like Discover magazine.
You got to preach that at a conference, bro.
Brother,
oh my God!
When I say like that,
Serpent
like
can't hear
floored
its
me.
own warning. It
It
speaks
can't
a
even
language.
hear its own warnings, and the warnings are meant to ward off the predator, right? But it's not even going to heed its own warning.
And how did you say that last phrase? A serpent speaks a language.
It's not built to receive. It operates from the ground up, right? And I love it because when the serpent was cursed by the Most High, it's not just a posture of humiliation, it's a perceptual limitation.
Yes.
The enemy's hearing apparatus requires contact with the earth, and he cannot receive what comes from above. He is by design frequency limited to the terrestrial register.
Frequency limited to the terrestrial register, meaning even though we are Adam, we are the earth man. Actually, most of our existence moves through a field higher than that.
Yep.
Most of our sensory perceptions happen above that strictly terrestrial level you're talking about. Most of the feel, I mean, if I stood up and walked across the floor, you would feel your feet would sense the impact. So we do receive signals from that field, but they're very limited. Most of it we're getting, so we are quite literally living in a higher realm, moving through a higher field. And most of what the serpent, where the serpent does move through our field, because obviously it breathes air and it's surrounded by air, but most of where it moves through our field, it is still not accessing most of the input from our field. Most of its input is still coming from the earth. It's literally the earth creature.
Literally. And we've touched on this before.
Oh my God.
I mean, you've broke this down beautifully, understanding like that lower realm, that's that carnality, that's where anxiety, that's where fear lives, the flesh parts of us live. That's his bread and butter. That's where it traffics in. It feels most comfortable there. The frequency of like weight and like heaviness, that tottering, that shaking, It lives down there. But I love because the God that we serve, he didn't just come down and stay there. He went back up when he resurrected and rose, but he's also calling us to go up too. He invites us up. That's why we sit with him in heavenly places. He's called, like, that's why a lot of us, we feel that tension, because we want to resonate in that lower, because it's comfortable. That's where our jaw wants to rest. It's easy to get caught up in the gossip and get caught up in anxiety and fear. And we step inside places where, open up your phone and the algorithm is ticking to the metronome of fear and anxiety and doubt and angst. And we come right along and we come right into alignment and follow the rhythm of it. And we have to just imagine ourselves rising above that and have our core come into agreement with us rising above it, because we can't give that lip service. It has to fundamentally change from the inside. And that takes quiet. That takes meditative intention for him to change us and transform us from the inside out.
Yeah. You first of all, holy cow. We got to clip that whole part about the serpent and do a side video, because I want even people who would never sit and listen to this whole podcast
Yeah, to kind of like
to
capture
hear
that.
But when we understand at the allegorical level that the serpent is very much an image of how consciousness moves through the human creature, and the way that that inner voice speaks to us. What you just said, the voice of the serpent, which is basically knowledge, disconnected from, disattached to the connecting beam that is God.
Yeah.
It speaks through the earth. And the reason that the mind, which in Genesis 3 is the image there, is Eve as the emotional mind, the intuitive mind, overriding Adam as the expression of the logical. Like the left brain went to sleep, and the right brain, unfortunately, was completely in the driver's seat, whereas they are meant to function together. The way that happened, the connecting point that caused Eve and ultimately Adam to resonate with what the serpent said was senses. When Eve saw that the tree was good for food and desirable, another sensory word, to make one wise was, no, the first one was pleasant to the eyes.
Yes. Yes.
Good for food, and desirable to make one wise. She put forth her hand, took the fruit and ate it, and gave also to Adam.
Hold on. She put forth her what?
Hand, her
Yeah, this is what we have been talking
her
about.
sensory nature,
Yeah.
her five senses, took of it. What connected her to the resonance of that voice was that sensory nature. And so when we say, come into the holy place, go through the three realms of approach to the throne of God within inside you, begin to go. Jesus said, when you pray, go into the inner room, Matthew 6. Close the door. So number one, go into the inner room. That means you cease all activity. Closing the door, you cease thought, and it takes practice. And in that secret, the stillness, when we're telling people to do that, what we're asking them to do is to create space between them and this field. So we're trying to help them disattach from the beam so that they no longer resonate with the impulse coming from the voice of the serpent, so that he can no longer manipulate their pendulum. That's what we're asking you to create space between your consciousness and will and your body, the earth, the dirt man, because the serpent can only hear and speak through that medium.
That's right.
So in the most profoundly literal way, you need to disattach in order to not run the risk of unintentionally resonating with the voice of the serpent.
Because you will resonate with something.
Gonna.
You don't have an option. Hey, we got to take a quick break because you're breaking my brain tonight, man.
Me too. My God, man, this serpent thing. Before we go on the break, I have to get it out of my system. Do you remember the stupid joke? Yeah. Tonto was the one that went around with the Lone Ranger, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Tonto, the Lone Ranger is trying to figure out, what's going on. And Tonto jumps down off his horse and puts his ear to the ground. And after a few seconds, he looks up and says, "Buffalo passed by this way." And the Lone Ranger says, "That's amazing. How did you know that? By putting your ear to the ground. Did you hear their hooves?" And he says, "No, ears sticky."
We gonna be right back, man.
I'm sorry. So obviously, by this point in the discussion, if someone is still of the mindset that the language of frequency, sound, resonance, waves, all that, field theory doesn't have direct bearing on how we should perceive and interact with reality, I just think that person is not in a place right now where they're open to that growth. So to me, if a person is in a place to be open to learning and growth, just based off what has transpired so far in this conversation, you ought to be picking up that there's something there. Like there's really there's something substantive in this discussion. And a lot of people are picking up on that, and kind of the meme version of it is overgrown on social media and all of that. And that's one of the things that's a little frustrating when you start to awaken to realities that are higher than and challenge the presuppositions that came along with your old, dust of the earth level of consciousness. One of the things that's a little frustrating is all of these truths get co-opted, distorted, inverted, but even just flattened and handled in a very ham-fisted way that lacks all nuance, so you get, obviously charlatans that come along and try to basically build cult followings by, saying, well, here's quantum theory, and they say this to people that have never heard quantum field theory before. And then they tell them, that means that if you do this, that will happen. And they're basically, it's a money hustle and, influence hustle and all of that. That's all kind of frustrating because it serves to obfuscate what's real, because more cooler heads looking at all that see it, they smell the rat and they go, that's silly, or that's false, or and it's frustrating because this is one of the serpent's great modes of camouflaging truth under confusion, is by automatically kind of discrediting these ideas or the people who might bring you these ideas, because so many fools have been foolish with these ideas. So we have to be careful. Don't run off half-cocked and, join a cult because you heard about frequency. You know what I mean? So there's this meme that I'm sure you've seen. I would be surprised if anyone hasn't seen it. It's got that very famous picture of Nikola Tesla where his, sunken cheeks. And, And it says, if you want to find the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. Have you seen that? That quote is constantly attributed to Tesla online. The only trouble is we haven't found where he actually said those words. But he did definitely espouse that idea. And it's a fair assessment of a lot of the body of his work to look at that and say, it's pretty clear that's what he basically thought. His like, hey, this is the code right here, Right. So, but be careful with that stuff, because that stuff is kind of, let me put it to you this way. If someone is telling you Nikola Tesla said this, and then they're making a bunch of other bold statements, maybe use the Berean method and double check those things before you buy into them, because this person hasn't done even a cursory level of research to type into Google, did Nikola Tesla say? Which is what I did. It wasn't that complicated. No, we don't know that he said that string of words in that order, but it is basically what he was after. Nikola Tesla had the gift of pattern recognition at a level that is mind-blowing. He was obsessed with numerical patterns. He was obsessed with 3, 6, and 9. He did not do the 3, 6, 9 ritual that people are selling out classes teaching people, which may border into witchcraft territory. You got to be careful with this stuff.
It's cool to unpack it, but yeah, you got to be careful.
Well, here's what I want people to understand. Understanding the mysteries of the universe is a responsibility, because with great knowledge comes great responsibility. And just because you might know how to do something does not automatically mean that you should do it.
Say that again.
And that becomes more and more true the deeper you go into these deep things of God. You do start to understand kind of the fabric of reality more and more. Mm-hmm. That does not mean automatically that you should manipulate it. Jesus walked around embodying all truth in human form. The very Logos, he is the very primordial sound of God, the very primordial word of God that frames this world, and yet did not just walk around willy-nilly, turning rocks into grasshoppers and, he just didn't. He actually specifically said, I do nothing of my own, but only that which the Father gives me to. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So one of the, I think it's important to say when we're talking about this stuff, yes, there's a lot of twisting and co-opting for people's own motives, and I want people to begin to understand that because we are the only beings made in the image of God who have been given dominion in the realm of earth, and I said it that way carefully, you know that, because I am not of the belief that we are the only beings made in the image of God. It's nonsensical to me to think that we are.
Come on.
When Elohim said, let us make man in our image.
Yeah.
The uncreated one has created other beings in his own image, but he has not given them dominion in this realm.
Right.
Just like we don't have dominion in another.
Their realm.
Like, you're not going to catch me on Mars, even if Elon gets there and makes it cheap. I'm just going to tell you, you're not going to catch me there. I am not setting foot anywhere that I have not been given dominion. I'm not going to mess with it. I don't know what the rules of that engagement are, and I don't want to find out. If God wants me there, he will take me there. Like, I really feel that way about it. So even when I interact with spiritual realities, I try to make sure that I do so from the position in which the dominion given to me by God has been designed to act. So when I sit with Christ in heavenly places, that is higher than this realm of earth. But I am specifically, by the rules of the game, I am allowed and invited to operate on this realm from there.
Come on.
So it's important as you begin to decode the mysteries of the universe to realize things like this. People that use crystals in healing are not stupid. I mean, some of them are. There are stupid people in every.
Yeah, we know what you mean, though.
But the people that those people are imitating that really pass down this knowledge for untold generations are not stupid. But it can be very unwise to interact with that kind of knowledge. I'll just say this. I have not arrived, and that's not saying much, but for what it's worth, I have not arrived at a place where I would feel comfortable manipulating energy through crystals to try to, get healing or whatever, because I don't understand where the line between that as an expression of dominion and that as the outflow of manipulation lies.
It's so blurred.
And what I know is that what makes crystals so powerful as a medium of energy transference is the very brilliant geometric patterns that make them up. They are composed of these fractals, unbelievably ornate and systematic, organized, crystalline structures that, by nature of being such a beautifully organized and interconnected structure, it creates a very natural environment for frequency to flow through and be amplified. It carries frequency very well and it amplifies it very well. But what I know is that some energetic influences are just like sound. Mm-hmm. That's an energetic influence. That's a waveform, a frequency waveform, and that can move through crystal in very special ways too. That's what you get beautiful instruments from that principle. Or if you want to test if a glass is really crystal, you can wet your finger and touch the top in the right way and hear it ring out.
Yeah.
Light, beautiful interplay between crystals and light. But spirits are also energetic. Mm. And so I am aware that it's not just things like sound and light that move so beautifully through crystals and are amplified through them, but also spiritual energies, because they are also energetic forms. So my point in saying that is, I'll be honest, I'm still studying and learning, because if you really understand how medicine works, you quickly understand that the line between pharmacy knowledge and sorcery is incredibly thin. And it's confusing when you really examine it.
Can we just back up just for a second? Because you just said something in regards to the crystals, but you know it triggered my mind to go to? The high priest.
And the
breastplate.
Oh, absolutely.
So there's a there there.
There's a there there.
Like you said, the people who are dabbling and operating in that, they're not dumb. There is actual connections to these fine pieces of rock.
The realm of heaven is built on a foundation of 12 of them.
Yes. And it provides, like you said, a field for energy and frequency.
An incredibly effectual field.
There's a reason why they represent the 12 tribes.
Yes.
And the high priest carries it on his chest.
Yep.
Covering what? The innermost being.
That's right. That's right. and the strongest energy field that comes out of a human.
Comes out of from the heart.
I'm unwilling. I believe it is intellectually lazy to say that everything connected to crystals is witchcraft. I think that's unbelievably lazy.
That's a very lazy take. I agree.
I know that can't be the answer. God made them. Stop calling things that God made
It's a crystal
evil.
sea that's detailed in the book of
100%.
Revelation. What are we talking about?
But I do know that most of the people in my life that have interacted with that have been dabbling with things that I feel are no-go for me. So I know that there is a way to that knowledge through the knowledge of God, but I haven't gotten there yet. If somebody knows someone who has, please send them to us. I'd be so interested in hearing what God has given you. But what I'm saying is, all knowledge comes from God, ultimately. It gets perverted, subverted, inverted, diverted.
Mm-hmm.
But all knowledge comes from God, ultimately. God doesn't create things that only can be used by evil. That being said, something that powerful. I'm saying this because I think crystals are powerful, not the other way around.
Yeah.
Not because I think it's nothing. Something that powerful is something that I don't want to interact with from a position of ignorance. And I'm unwilling to gain the knowledge by going to the dark side to hear it. So until God chooses to unfold that to us through his kingdom and his righteousness and explains it to us by the Holy Spirit, I have a real caution flag in my spirit about interacting with those that way because I just don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know how you do it and how you avoid channeling an energetic influence that you don't need in your life.
Come on.
And so I'm giving that as an example of saying, like, oh, well, you know, I said about pharmacy and sorcery. Obviously, like, your brother's a pharmacist and a faithful Christian, faithful member of our church. I've been very thankful for him and his expertise multiple times. We are not. I'm just saying that all feels very normal to us because Western medicine has normalized it to us. But if you actually get down to the granular level of how they're doing what they're doing, in other generations, that would have typically been called sorcery. So where is that line? How do you know it? When it comes to people using crystals and energy healing that way and all of that, I believe that if scientists were willing to give it an honest to God shot, they could probably find out mind-blowing realities by interfacing with it. But I'm afraid that because of the constant drive of Babylon to, or I'm concerned that because of the constant drive of Babylon to monetize and what's the word I'm looking for? Not hijack, but I mean hijack works, but
I do think hijack works.
Yeah. To monetize and basically abuse every aspect of creation. I'm concerned that knowledge would very quickly take a left turn and be inverted, and all kinds of misery would come out of it. And
yes,
but I want to say there is a there because that is a conversation about how energy moves through a particular field, and it's profound. So you brought this up earlier. This knowledge has been encoded in the cultures of the world for as long as there's been humanity. In Hindu and Buddhist traditions, the syllable I think we usually hear is Om or Aum. That's regarded as the primordial sound, the first vibration. The universe emerges from that sound. But there are some interesting properties to that sound. When I'm not recommending this, but when someone sits in meditation and does that for a considerable amount of time, one thing, it's almost like a brain reset. Like basically what happens is that thought ceases. So that's not nothing. My dad and mom, before they came to faith in Christ, studied Eastern mysticism pretty deeply. One of the things that my dad always told me that a guru had told him, and so whatever, I don't know how verifiable this is, but a guru had told him back in the 60s, I think, that that in Japan there's an ancient tradition somewhere that there's a set of phonetic sounds of vowels that, when strung together in a particular way, creates the full resonance of the primordial sound in all of its timbre, and that everything consists inside of. Do you know what that string of vowels is? Have you ever heard this?
Is it A-E-I-O-U?
Yeah, E-I-O-U. I don't know. That's interesting. So what we're saying here is that eons before the first particle accelerator was ever conceived, sages sat in silence and said, the root of all of this is a sacred vibration.
Silence is its own frequency.
Right.
I think people need to understand, because Scripture doesn't treat silence as the absence of sound, but more as like a distinct register with its own power. I mean, come on, 1 Kings 19 with Elijah. Wasn't inside the tornado, wasn't in the earthquake, wasn't in the fire, but it was that still small voice, that silence, that
the
sound,
the sound
resonated out of. And we've been saying it over and over again, like, go in the inner room, shut the door.
Yeah.
And sit in the silence.
Study the Schumann resonance. Earth has a core fundamental sound. Earth has a sound, just like your car has a sound. Earth has a core fundamental resonance that we call the Schumann frequency. It fluctuates, but it's constant. Everything ultimately is sound and light in some very profound way. You know me and the lyrics, but there's an old, very, very famous Simon and Garfunkel song that's all about this. The sound of silence. Have you ever heard the sound of silence? Hello, darkness, my old friend. I've come to talk with you again because
Yeah.
a vision softly creeping left its seeds while I was sleeping, and the vision that was planted in my brain still remains within the sound of silence.
What really resonates with me as well, since we're talking about it, and I think it would do us a disservice of us diving into frequency without mentioning what Dr. Laura Sanger has
100%.
repeatedly brought up and really piqued my attention in her research and study of frequency. You've heard of her study with the A444 and how she has addressed how when the A440 became the standard for tuning.
Which just means
Yeah.
how many times the waveform vibrates in the A note
Yes.
tuned to 440 hertz.
Correct. And that's how that became the standard, right? And not to go down all of the different data and the research from it, but she posits that was intentionally changed from 444 to 440, and that resonates completely different. And that was the standard for tuning. But her central claim is that the 440 hertz tuning came from a Nazi era propaganda.
Right.
And they had a very, very specific reason to do that. But that 444 hertz, it unlocks something that is so fundamentally different and spiritual in nature. When you tune the A to the 444, the natural harmonic result is that the C becomes 528 hertz. And that is a known tone they call the miracle tone.
Right.
It's like a DNA resonating sound and has to do with cellular repair.
Absolutely.
There's something about the 4. Something really, really special about I'm talking about healing happens when you coming to alignment and tune to the right frequency.
Cellular healing.
Cellular healing. And I also just want to throw this out there too, because I really hope that you touch on this before we get out of here. What you shared with me as I was walking the aisles of a grocery store blew my mind too. When you were saying how Jesus healed, you gotta tell us about how he snatches the people that he healed.
Well, that goes back to the resonance discussion.
Yeah.
And we will. The 440, before that standardization of tuning to 440A to 440 hertz, there wasn't really standardization. So 444 was pretty common. 432 was pretty common. Either of those pretty demonstrably produces, and this is somewhat subjective, but basically a warmer resonance, more comforting, but also when brainwave patterns are studied, less fragmented. There's something about the 440 that tends to produce a level of unease in people.
From a cellular level.
From
you
a cellular
feel it.
level.
Yeah.
Which unease and dis-ease are pretty closely
Connected.
uncomfortably closely connected. And one really does have to wonder. I mean, I've definitely read Dr. Sanger's work on that and some other related stuff. And by her own admission, she'll say, like, it's hard to build more than a circumstantial case, because a lot of it can't be proven. But the circumstances are odd. I mean, that decision to standardize all commercial, publicly available music to A equals 440 hertz was made in Munich under the Nazi regime.
Intentional.
That's they were big into the occult and big into mind control, and you just have to wonder, when music is constantly used to barrage our souls with stuff that leads to fragmentation, dis-ease, and the most vile. If you don't believe me, go read the lyrics of the top 100 songs on the chart and tell me we are not being programmed with the most vile, demonic, diabolical ideas, concepts that are being normalized to us. Child trafficking and rape and murder and incest, and all of this has been going on now for decades.
Yeah.
And there's something about the way we interface with the music that kind of seems to cause us to, like, give it a hall pass that we don't give to anything else.
Because music has the ability to bypass all of our critical thinking.
Which is where I get frustrated with Christians who get so offended if a song says the F word. I'm sorry. We're talking about murdering, raping, like, I get it. You don't like that terminology, neither do I, but can we please talk about the elephant in the room?
Right.
We, you know what I mean? Even our outrage, in other words, is being curated. So all of these concepts kind of driving together really point to me to John 1. In the beginning was the Logos, or Genesis 1.
Yeah. Which John 1 is echoing.
Right.
Yeah.
And God said. And God said. And it was. And
It's like
God
10 times, I believe,
Yes.
right?
Speech is auditory vibrations moving through the field of air. And the Bible portrays creation as that proceeding from the mouth of God, which as a believer should suggest to us that in some very profound way, the universe is all matter organized by waveform patterns that proceeded from the eternal utterance of God, which his word never passes away. So if he spoke, he is speaking. God saying, "Let there be light," it doesn't echo. It resounds.
Yeah.
It is constantly emanating. There is light because God is saying, "Let there be light." And there is. Light in some very real fundamental way. As a believer, we should be perceiving light as the visible emanation of the Logos, of the Word of God, which is how Paul chooses to describe these things. For in him we live, move, and have our being. Which goes back to your question about what is the field. Christ is the field. He's the Logos made flesh. And we are in the field. We are little Christs. We are of Christ, in Christ, through Christ. He is the anointed one. We are the anointed ones.
Yes. Yes.
And it is our oneness with him coupled with our oneness with each other that anchors us to the beam that you so eloquently related to the cross, which is the tree of life, anchored to the beam that organizes our chaos into sympathetic resonance, but where that gets really not dicey to me, but profound and spiritually crucially important. If all of this is true on any substantive level, we have to be so careful about what we are tied to, about what we are anchored in, about what grounds us in our experience of reality. Because ultimately it is whatever we are connected to that is going to be the medium through which, the field through which we receive the impulses that tune the vibration of our being. So when an idea comes to us or an influence comes to us, whether or not it resonates with us and produces a sympathetic resonance within us is going to be directly tied to what we are anchored in. The field we have bought. And this is what I was saying to you on the phone that day when I was telling you I can't quite put it into words, but I feel like I have begun to perceive something profound about the mechanism of the miraculous. In that, so often as believers, my experience has been the most common thing we tend to experience, at least in the developed West, is incremental miraculous events. So I've seen people healed of cancer, and I've seen some of them healed instantly, and I've seen many of them healed well outside the projected bounds of medical intervention, like well outside.
Right.
It may not be proof, but it's strong evidence of divine intervention. I say it may not be proof because a doubter could choose to say, well, there are anomalous situations. But in many of the situations I've personally witnessed, that's not the response that doctors had.
Nope. They use that M word very, very sparingly.
Right. And when they do, it's because they don't think it was an anomaly. They think it was probably a miracle.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And I've seen that, but the majority of times that I've seen it have been incremental. Someone goes to the doctor and gets a surprising report. The church is emboldened. Their faith is emboldened. We continue to pray and fast and believe God. And a few weeks later, they get another, maybe not surprising this time, maybe shocking report. Then the next time they go, they get a stunning report, and the doctor pulls out that M word. I don't know what happened. This was not the path we were on, right?
Yeah.
And we, as believers, we look at that and go, yep, we saw a miracle. But what has always bothered me a little bit is like, yeah, but Jesus was just like walking up to people and being like, be made whole. And
Come on now.
from that very hour, you
Yeah.
know what I mean?
Yeah.
And just as I began to understand the way that resonance impacts us, the fact that if you and I are connected, if we are touching and agreeing, that my faith emboldens your faith emboldens my faith, that the resonance begins to produce organized, rhythmic intensity that we are now amplifying, synchronizing, and strengthening the signal that each of us is producing and coming into alignment with each other through those sympathetic resonances, moving through the medium that connects us, our faith in Christ. But what I've started to clock is, what if the thermostat that I am is just comparatively not that strong? So I have real faith. I believe God. I have real hope. I trust God. But maybe that signal hasn't been perfected in me. Love has not been made perfect. Because love casts out all fear. Well, perfected love, complete love, casts out all fear. Mm-hmm. So maybe the love of Christ, the expression of the love of Christ that I am, has not matured to a level of purity and strength that automatically calibrates every room I walk into.
Wait. Automatically calibrates to every room that I walk
Calibrates
into.
every room.
Oh, calibrates every room, right. That's powerful. Like, that imagery is powerful.
You know what we say when someone has a magnetic personality?
Yeah.
They're charismatic.
Right.
What does that mean? It means they have a strong spirit. The spirit of God living in us is also called charisma.
Right.
That's why we're in the charismatic Pentecostal side of our movement, because we have an emphasis on that.
Mm-hmm.
What is someone who is not charismatic? Have a weak spirit. But I think that a lot of people that have a weak spirit don't actually have a weak spirit. They are expressing their spirit weakly.
Come on, sir.
Because I think a lot of us are so locked in trauma, sometimes generational trauma, that our spirit is wounded, is not present, is hiding out. I think that a lot of people that we describe as not have, like, we sometimes we'll jokingly refer to a personality bypass.
Mm-hmm.
Someone that we might tend to refer to as not having a lot of personality, not being very charismatic, might be somebody that the Bible would refer to as a prisoner. In Luke 4, Jesus said in the King James Version when he was quoting Isaiah, "The Spirit of the Lord is upon me," the charisma. Mm-hmm. He said, to set at liberty them that are bruised. To set at liberty them that are bruised. So you mean there's a form of bondage that's just woundedness? I think a lot of people are trapped in their own body. They're prisoners in their own body. And all of the divine energy that God breathed into them when they were born, and then certainly when they were reborn as believers, as the awakened, is locked behind a wall, a medium that doesn't provide a good field for the energy that God has put within them to emanate from, to move through. So if you're one of those people, one of the things you probably experience is that you're deeply impacted by any room you walk into. Mm-hmm. A lot of people are not much of a thermostat at all. They mostly just mirror and reflect back
Whatever temperature set.
By whoever's setting the tone in that room. Mm-hmm. So they don't feel safe in public. They don't feel safe around others because they don't feel in control of their own environment. And yet, others can walk into a room and you can have your back to them and the whole energy in the room shifts. If you're an energetically sensitive person, you don't even have to see them enter the room to know that the atmosphere has shifted. Some people with a magnetic personality can walk into a completely dead party where everyone is just staring awkwardly at each other and wishing they had never come out tonight.
Showing up, right?
And the right person walk into that room, and 5 minutes later, we are having a barn burner of a party that will live in the record books of infamy for all time. We will be telling our grandchildren about the shenanigans that went down at that party.
Right.
Because one person walked in the room and set the frequency that every other resonance married itself to. One action of the Holy Spirit within a believer is supposed to be the setting free of the bruised. It's the will of God for us as believers to shift the atmosphere when we walk into rooms. It is the devil that lied to you and told you that you're just not that kind of person. You don't have to be an extrovert. You don't have to be a loud person. You don't have to be funny. You don't have to be any of those things to be a person who automatically sets the tone that everything else is going to align to when you come in the room, because love is the strongest energy that can be put out. And if you are walking around embodying the love of Christ everywhere that you go, to everyone that you see, every other energetic alignment is going to have to begin to adjust itself toward you. You don't have to say a word. You brought love into the room. So hate will begin to see itself out the door. Anger, bitterness, depression, anxiety, sadness, division, grief will begin to adjust themselves to healing and peace and grace and wholeness. We are carriers. We are the ark of God. We are carriers of the divine presence. So it's extremely important as believers that we begin to practice his presence so that we switch from being thermometers to being thermostats. And when we are thermostats, we become the strongest thermostat in the room. Not meaning the loudest voice, not meaning the funniest, not meaning any of that. Meaning the love of Christ that flows out of our pores becomes so strong that it becomes an actual force field around us. And everything else either has to join the resonance or get out of the way. And I believe that this is crucial, bro, because we said at the beginning of the episode that there's something you have to do to prepare yourself to be able to withstand deception. And I believe, this is just me, I said this to you on the phone, people can take it or leave it, but I believe that because Jesus was and is the embodiment of the perfection of love in human form, that when he walked up to people, they didn't have to come his way to be held in perfect love, to be in the absence of fear, to be in the wholeness of unity. They didn't have to do anything. He brought it with him. He brought the kingdom of heaven with him. He didn't need someone to touch and agree with him because he was always touching and agreeing with the Father. Always, at all times. Read John 17. So when two believers touch and agree in his name, the kingdom of heaven manifests
yes, sir.
from out of them. I only have to become one with him for the kingdom of heaven to manifest within me. But I have to become one with you for the kingdom of heaven to manifest outwardly, consistently. He was constantly touching and agreeing with the Father, so the kingdom of heaven went with him in outward manifestation everywhere he went. So what if when Jesus walked up to a paralytic and said, "Take up your bed and walk"?
Come on.
That miracle did not take place in this realm. It took place in the reality of the kingdom of heaven. And all Jesus did was cover them with the atmosphere of heaven and shift their reality to the kingdom of heaven timeline. He was walking around in the kingdom of heaven timeline. And when he connected himself to them, just like the clock, in under 30 seconds, their pendulum switched to match his.
Come on.
With them doing nothing. If I pray and call out a miracle over you or you over me, we have to get our pendulum in line with him together to see that miracle. So we see these incremental miracles because we're working together to express this field into this reality. And we've all got work to do to be better embodiments of it and stronger thermostats of it. But what if the thing that was happening with Jesus and then ultimately the apostles is that They just brought it with them. So when their shadow passed over somebody, they were healed. When their handkerchief touched somebody, they were healed. Because the very clothes on Jesus' body, the tallit on his back, was not only drenched with, but existing with inside the reality of the kingdom of heaven. There was no false reality overlay where Jesus was. That's why he also saw right through every single person and knew their mind and their heart, because all pretense, all ability to wear fig leaves to cover egoic stuff
ceases.
is gone, because they're not actually being viewed from inside this false reality overlay. He's brought the other one with him, and everything else has to come into alignment. So that same principle is how we are going to withstand the deception, which I can't even really say is coming at this point. It's upon us and it's being unfolded. And we were telling our own church body tonight, unfortunately, all carnal Christians are about to succumb and be deceived. There is a false Jesus coming. I feel impelled by the Holy Ghost that I have to shout this from the rooftops. It's not just a false Christ. It's not just the Antichrist. I need people to hear me. It is a false Jesus. That's when we say the Antichrist, we can say, well, I think it's Trump. Well, I think it's Kushner. Well, I think it's Joe Biden. Well, for some reason, it's always, an American politician.
Yeah,
but
right.
Whatever. I think it's an imam. That's okay. All of this stuff, whatever. But what I need people to understand is it's not just a false Christ coming. It's a false Jesus. And I hate to say it, but a whole lot of us have already been worshiping a false Jesus for a long time. A Jesus created in our image and likeness. And so our resonance, we are tuned. It's almost like if the kingdom of heaven is tuned to A equals 444, we've all been tuned to A equals 440. So when the kingdom of heaven strikes a note, we clash, we don't resonate. What's scarier than that is if the false kingdom strikes a note, we do resonate.
We resonate with it.
Because we're tuned to the wrong thing. We're grounded in the wrong thing.
Yeah.
And so I feel the need to shout from the rooftops to people, listen, the real Jesus says when you find the treasure, buy the field. Leave everything. Come and follow me. Do be radical. Do be crazy. Do be the one that everyone judges and says you've joined a cult because you got too extreme.
Come on.
Because you fell too deeply, madly, head over heels in love with a Jesus they can't relate to, who doesn't value what they value, who doesn't want to build a mega church, maybe. I'm not saying mega churches are wrong, but maybe the Jesus that they've fallen in love with doesn't give two hoots. The size of the building, the number of butts in the seats. Maybe he's got totally different value system, isn't interested in any of their metrics. Follow Jesus, the real Jesus, the Jesus you find in the pages of the Bible. Follow him. Do what he did. Go where he went. Value what he values. Love who he loves. And practice tuning yourself to the resonance of the kingdom of heaven. Before the concertmeister, typically the violinist, the first chair violinist, always stands, plays one note.
Plays a note.
The whole orchestra responds with the same note. And usually in a professional orchestra, the concert immediately ensues. But occasionally, the conductor will point at somebody and you'll see them put their ear to their instrument and gently fix whatever he heard or she heard, because what the conductor is pointing at is a slight variance, just a slight clash, not quite there. What we do now is ultimately going to determine how we move through this deception that is upon us. When we are going to be offered a false Jesus who is not here to save us, but to traffic us. And we're going to be caught if we are tuned to the frequency of fear and lust, because the offer of security is going to resonate with us, and the false signs and wonders that are given are going to be the ones that we were looking for. But if we will repent for having chased a Jesus who values what we value, who wants what we want, who lusts after what we lust after and fears what we fear, if we repent of following a Jesus who has to look like us and we ask the God of heaven to reveal himself to us through the person and work of the real Lord Jesus Christ, manifest himself into our lives, tie us to his kingdom and righteousness, and tune us to the frequency of heaven, then when falsehood speaks, we either won't hear it or we will clash with it. We will not resonate with it. And we will be impossible to manipulate because we will not be in fear. We will be impossible to tempt because we will not be in desire. And we will be impossible to steal because our lives will be hid with him. So ultimately, the path to escaping the great deception is to understand the truth of fields, frequency, vibration, and resonance, and get tuned to the field we want to live in, because you have to buy one, and you're going to live in the one you buy.
That is so powerful. That is so profound. And that is a perfect way to end what I really feel is a very much Rhema type of word. One that is so relevant for what's happening right now, but I think will also be relevant tomorrow and the next day and the day after that. If we would only understand the power that we have inside of us, and that the field is in and around us. Like you said, once we're going to have to live in whatever we buy, whatever we purchase, or what's been purchased for us.
Yeah, because that's the thing. Jesus Christ is the field.
Yeah.
And he already paid the price.
Already purchased it.
But he's not going to buy you a field when you own one. You have to be without a field.
Kind of makes sense when it says, sell all and
Right.
follow me.
Take up your cross, deny yourself, and follow me. When you fast, read Isaiah 57 and practice fasting that way.
Yeah.
Practice fasting in a way that leads you to go find somebody who needs food and feed them, to go find somebody who needs clothes and clothe them, to find somebody who needs a glass of water and give them a glass of water. When you fast, take the time to sit and be quiet and ask him to tune your heart. Say no to your desires,
Come on.
to the things you just choose not to satisfy your desires for a little while and ask him to retune them to match his. There's nothing secret here. This is not a secret. This really gets back to like old time religion.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
just say yes to Jesus, say no to everything else, and ask him what that means for you today. And you will begin to be tuned. And you will be buying into the field he bought and paid for.
Yes, sir.
And he is the field.
Yes, sir. Well, thank y'all for sticking it out and staying tuned in this far. I pray it resonated with you. I know it should have. He that hath ears to hear, let him hear.
Yeah.
I believe the Spirit spoke tonight. I do.
Yeah.
And there's so much of this that I think we all need to sit with.
Yeah.
Ask those deep questions. Allow ourselves to be still and silent and recognize there is a frequency. There is a sound.
You know what's funny? We never even got to Jericho.
We're going to have to come back and
That's hilarious.
and unpack. I think Jericho by itself is so good.
Yeah.
And I mean, we can probably come back and we can kind of unpack the different ways that frequency was used specifically in that scenario and kind of all throughout the wilderness narrative.
Yeah. We love you.
We love you. Live antikemi. Be Hebrew. Resonate with the frequency of heaven.
And as always, thank you to our frequent flyers.